To kick off the afternoon session, we have our next panel, How Blockchain and Decentralization Enable a More Equitable World. This panel is moderated by Irina Heaver, the crypto lawyer. Please give Irina a warm welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you very much to the organizers for this amazing event. I want to bring on my awesome panel, and we're starting with Antoni, co-founder of Polygon ID. Please. Sandeep, co-founder of Polygon. Sandeep, please join the stage. Co-founder of Polygon, please. And last but not least, Amit, the chairman of Rainfall. And we will talk about decentralization. Everybody is talking about it, and as a lawyer, I want to start with definitions first, because there is no such thing as decentralization as a defined term. Everything has a meaning and everything has sort of extent. So Antoni, can we start with you? What is decentralization and how would you define it? And why is it suddenly such a hot topic? Why should we be all excited or not about it?
Okay, good point. Well, thanks for having me here. Then for me, decentralization is that nobody is the owner of the data, and there is not a malicious actor or a single point of failure that can manipulate all this data. No? Then for me, the data is spread. Nobody has control. This ensures that the data is soundness, no? It is very sound. And now, thanks to blockchain, we have this technology that we never had in the past, where the knowledge can be spread, and there is not a single government or entity who can manipulate all this data. I think nowadays this point is raising a lot because we know that some of the bigger companies in the world, they are extracting a lot of value from our data, and then I think this is why this has become one of the buzzwords in the last times.
Sandeep, so what is decentralization to you, and why is it important? What would you add to Antoni's points?
I think Antoni said it rightly, that there is decentralization means that there is no one single party in control, no single party controls the data, and no single party is the single point of failure. Now, this is the starting point, and we have a spectrum on this. Like you can be as decentralized as, let's say, a layer one like Bitcoin or Ethereum, or I mean, I think only Bitcoin and Ethereum can in some way claim a certain level of decentralization. Or you can be something like Lightning Network or Polygon. Polygon is a layer 2 on Ethereum. It's kind of Lightning Network only in some sense. And you have these trade-offs. You take these trade-offs that, decentralization versus scale and all that. So it's a spectrum, and various different, like in the specifically context of blockchain, various systems or ecosystems can be at various stages of the spectrum. But I think in general also, for any kind of human collaborative system, decentralization is a spectrum, and the tendency, or the large systems which survive for the longest of time, they might be slightly inefficient and slow sometimes, but they survive the longest as they keep moving towards the larger decentralization part.
So you mentioned that Ethereum is decentralized. As a self-appointed Bitcoiner on this panel, I will come back on this point, and I maybe challenge you a little bit, if that is okay.
Yes, for sure. Yes,
Amit,
that's okay.
We talked earlier about the privacy and how important the privacy is. Privacy in your financial transactions, privacy in your life, and especially with all our data being harvested. Do you see decentralization as part of protecting the privacy, part of protecting human freedoms that we have so little left?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. I think sometimes we get into the technical arguments around decentralization. I think we have seen and we've unlocked a lot of economic benefits, if you may, from decentralization. To me, if we don't go to the underlying philosophical underpinnings of why decentralization and why we do what we do, then I think we sometimes get caught up in our own fog and we miss out on the true value. And privacy is one example. But privacy is not so much an example of, I don't want Google to know my location or what I'm doing. The implications to me, and I would wager the implications to anyone on stage or in the audience today, are minimal. If you're a refugee in one of, I sit on the board of the Norwegian Refugee Council. It's the frontier refugee agency in the world. We have 12 million refugees in our camps at points of most conflict. The loss of privacy to Rashida, the refugee sitting in one of the camps outside of Syria, cannot just be the loss of life to her because she is being targeted by the existing regime. It could be the loss of life to collateral damage at that camp to another 10,000 refugees because of the targeting that happens, right? And so when we talk about decentralization, we can talk about the argument of whether Ethereum is truly decentralized or not versus Bitcoin. And that's a great argument. And for another forum, it's fine to make. But when you think of the implications to 99% of the world's population, not to our 1%, that's when you realize the mission that we're all on and the reason why we build what we build or we fight the fight we fight is to achieve some of those basic rights. And freedom is an easily used word. But freedom to you and I has a very different meaning to freedom to Rashida, the refugee, right?
Absolutely, and we keep forgetting that over 6 billion people on this planet live under oppressive governments, where the loss of your privacy means the loss of your life. When the government doesn't like what you have to say, which means they don't like what you have to think, there is a huge potential, detriment to your life and your families. But you wanted to mention something.
Yes, because I think this point was very valid, no? And I remember in one conference that at the end, decentralization was giving us the right to be ourselves, or the freedom, no? That because nobody can ban you, or you cannot be forbidden, no? Then, as part of in Polygon, no, we are in our ethos that there is this yes, exactly, that there is this in our soul. What we want is to bring this infrastructure to these 99% of the people that really need it, no? And this is part of what we name Polygon Impact. That is one of our strongest initiatives, and that honestly I am more proud. And I remember when we were in Natsivale maybe is the bigger refugee settlement in the world, in the south of Uganda. And the problem, for example, is that they don't have identity, because they were running away from the countries. It was centralized. Nobody was giving them the papers. No, then, for example, through initiatives like Polygon ID and through reputation, we are trying to bring this identity to the people in order that they can restart a new life, as you were saying. No? Then, I think this is what is extremely powerful of our technology. What it's make it differential from any other technology that was that has existed in our world before. And I only wanted to highlight this point that, of course, we can, in this forum, discuss about centralization, whatever, that we will discuss, and I will be happy to do that, but that all the opportunities that the technology is bringing, and here we speak only about identity, but we have on payments that we'll discuss later, other options, agriculture, supply chain, it's so powerful that I think this is what I hope we are bringing to the real world, and this is what I think we should be focused, because it's what the technology is bringing on the table.
Talking about technology, Sandeep, why do you think only with the onset of the blockchain technology, decentralization, or any meaningful decentralization is possible? Why couldn't we do that before, or are there better technologies to achieve that?
I think with blockchain, this was the first time Satoshi Nakamoto and people who were building with him, they were able to figure out a way technologically to have this decentralized computation. Like, your question is right, like, I mean, why can't we do it, why can't we do decentralization without this? And there have been like all these democracy, in a way, is a technology to bring more decentralization in how we human beings, kind of govern our areas. And it was 2,000-year-old technology. But now, why blockchain and why a digital technology to do it is that as human beings, we are spending more and more time on these digital devices, on digital world, like our identity, our bank accounts, our social life, our entertainment, everything stays or lives on these on these digital devices. And that's why, like, before blockchains, there was all these digital devices or these systems are controlled by one or the other single party, or I call them institutions. Like your bank is an institution, your social media app is an institution, your entertainment app is an institution. Everybody is an institution. And in the last 10, 15 years, with the advent of social media, we have seen that so many of these institutions have done so many kind of these corrupt malpractices or selling their users' data and things like that. And I think Bitcoin is the first time, brought that, kind of cracked that Byzantine, fault-tolerant kind of system in this setting. And then after that, like, it started a huge revolution, which was taken further by the likes of Ethereum, and now on the settlement layer, and then now on the transaction layer, likes of Polygon, and on Lightning Network, and many other layer 2 protocols are taking it to the next level. So I think it's the start of a revolution, and it's going to the other places.
So you mentioned the start of the revolution and going to the places, and I see Ethereum going to a wrong place with a proof of stake and moving from decentralization to centralization, because there's only, they basically, in my opinion, reinventing the fiat system where a few with a lot control the rest of the system. So why would you call Ethereum decentralized? Why would you, if there's only like a handful of parties, stakers, controlling the protocol?
Yes. So, first of all, like, this handful of parties controlling Ethereum, argument, I think that is true for Bitcoin also. There are, like, if you go to the Bitcoin block production, there will be like 5 or 6 pools controlling the 80 to 90% of block production. But we know, like, once you drill deep into that, that there are mechanisms, the mining pools, people contribute computation to it, they can switch from one mining pool to other mining pool, and all those kind of defenses are there with Bitcoin's argument. Same thing is also there with Ethereum's argument. For example, Lido has 30 different validator parties who are validating, and if they see that this is going in a different direction, they can move to the different kind of mechanisms. Similarly, like, for example, these exchanges who have become like the big validators, their users, like, if they go against the spirit of the community beyond a certain place, a lot of people, like from the Ethereum community, will simply move out their Ethereum into the places where they can stake in a slightly more decentralized way. So there are defenses or arguments that can be given on both sides, in the favor and in the kind of against side, right? But overall, as we said, that decentralization is a spectrum, right? And the worst argument can be that, okay, like, proof of work is highly decentralized and proof of stake is slightly less decentralized. I could be, and both sides, like, I could argue that proof of stake might be slightly more decentralized, proof of work is less decentralized. But whatever it is, we can live with that, because as at the end, we are all agreeing that this is a spectrum. As far as the decentralization is good enough that a central, kind of government agency can't control the whole thing and things like that, you can do it. For example, in proof of work, for example, let's say, we are talking about this OFAC compliance now, right? And, we are seeing that, okay, on Ethereum, people are, like, many validators are doing OFAC compliance, but you don't realize that there are multiple Bitcoin miners who work in the compliant jurisdictions. They have been doing the same thing, OFAC compliance on Bitcoin network also. But, if, let's say, a very aggressive stance happens where, everybody is let's say, censoring the OFAC compliant kind of addresses or OFAC restricted addresses, people could hard fork into a different chain. But in case of Bitcoin, the people who are censoring here, they can simply take their mining power and join this chain also. Whereas in a proof of stake, you can say that, okay, all these censoring validators, we will slash their stakes. So they, in this new fork chain, they can't come now. right? So there are, like all I'm saying is there are arguments on both sides, but point being that both sides are trying to achieve the maximum possible, or I would say good enough decentralization. And I think both sides have their own, favors and all that. And I can,
Of course, and I don't want to turn it into an Ethereum bashing panel, but you mentioned that validators can withdraw and go join some other sort of like stakers, and you cannot withdraw staked Ethereum, as we know. There is
for 6 months, maybe, yes.
It's not even in the roadmap, the withdrawal mechanisms.
No, that's not true. I think it's already declared that by the mid of next year, you can withdraw and stake anywhere. So.
Again, being a lawyer, I will believe it when I see it.
Yes.
I like seeing things with my own eyes, and so far, especially with the information that was given.
But I want to state one thing. Like, I am not like in any way, like even though like Polygon is a layer 2 on Ethereum, as I said, that in this whole space, if there is any other layer 1 which deserves to have a layer 2, is Bitcoin only. And Bitcoin started that revolution. If Bitcoin had this smart contracting functionality, I think it would be obviously make sense for a lot of layer 2s to build on Ethereum also, or on Bitcoin also. But point is that you don't have that that programmability over there. But we fully respect Bitcoin in the sense that Bitcoin is the thing which started this revolution, but we need more than payments.
Of course, and I would absolutely agree with you that we Bitcoiners or not, we have to support decentralization of Ethereum. Yes. We have to reject the censorship by governments trying to censor smart contracts, whether you're on this camp or that camp, because
Absolutely.
it starts as we all know, it starts very slowly, right? The creeping in on your rights and the removal of our rights starts very slowly, and then eventually we are all sort of penalized. But let's switch gears a little bit. Amit, please tell us about the AI and the very amazing project that you're working on, because this is exactly what you're focusing on, and how you are trying to bring that privacy that we can achieve with decentralization or with the smarter AI systems as well, because there's not only blockchain the answer to everything, there are also some other emerging technologies that we can talk about.
Yeah, so at the core of what we, again, going a little bit back to the philosophical underpinnings, what we wanted to do was make sure that people had a future of data self-sovereignty, right? When we talk about decentralization, when we talk about, even the arguments of, how much decentralization or not, what really matters is the use cases, right? To Antoni's point, the use cases of identity, they are very relevant if you don't have sovereign identity, right? Going back to that refugee example, you leave without a passport. What do you have as identity? If you get the next round of centralized identity, and now the issuing entity doesn't exist anymore, you're back to square one, right? So when you think of those use cases, is Ethereum truly decentralized or not, more than Bitcoin or not, kind of becomes less relevant to the lives of people, right? That's why the use cases matter so much. For us, we have always believed that modern society has valued human life based on physical land that we inhabit. And if we're lucky, what we find below or what we build on top. And today, we can't take one footstep on that physical land without generating a data footprint, right? And if we can value that data footprint in a friction-free way and attribute it back to the individual, then we start to value human life not just on physical land. We can start creating a fair model for creating daily income for people around the world, because we've got the next billion connected humans now, right? Like, if you look at the person on the streets of Mumbai, he may not have the privilege of shelter, but he's riding a rickety bicycle delivering a hot lunchbox from someone's home to their office. The data being generated from his cheap Android phone is telling a story of when that person might need a latte from Starbucks because the lunch got delivered and their next appointment is 30 minutes from now. And that's where the AI comes in. So we built completely decentralized edge-based AI that is able to do a lot of what Facebook, Google, Amazon's AI does in deeply centralized systems. And so it creates context on the edge. And that context gets converted into the kind of intelligence, for the example I just gave for a Starbucks, And the revenue generated from that intelligence goes back to where the data came from rather than to a Google or an Amazon. So we're flipping both the big tech model on in terms of the compensation of who owns the data and who earns from it, but we're doing it entirely based on a privacy framework. So no personally identifiable information ever leaves the device. In fact, no data ever leaves the device. So Rainfall doesn't replace Google. It's completely decentralized. And to your question, this is relevant because at the end of the day, it's not a choice to give up your privacy for income, right? If you're back to that refugee, you don't have a choice. You still need that income. And if we are truly going to empower the next generation of connected humans, then we need to do it the right way. We need to do it based on a principle of privacy, and we need to do it with true decentralization at hand. And again, like I step away from the argument, I just go, it doesn't matter. Where we can get what we want to do for the people, guess what? Rashida, the refugee, is not going to care whether that layer 2 was on Ethereum or the layer 2 was in Bitcoin. In fact, she never wants to hear the word blockchain, right? In the same way that we never talk about TCP/IP or HTTP, right? It doesn't matter. We're abstracting away. Tell me how you affect my life. And in our perspective with Rainfall, we want to give a daily sustainable income to the next billion connected humans without ever sacrificing their privacy.
Yep. Absolutely, and I don't think there can be any argument made against it. Antoni, you mentioned the ID projects that you're heading up. And how it benefits the society, how it benefits, those 6 billion, those, other than 1% who are in this room. What are other amazing projects that you are building that can benefit individuals and, of course, taking, the privacy and decentralization and all this, good features that we have to include?
Yes, I think that obviously, for me, identity is what will enable Web 4.0, as I was explaining, is 3.0 plus identity, but without scrapping all your data, then only giving the information that is required. And then, thanks to decentralization also, what we can avoid are middlemen. No? Why I'm saying that? I will give you 2 very concrete examples. One is, when I was in Zimbabwe, they are paying 25% for remittances, okay? Which in one of the poorest countries in the world should be not allowed. Then, thanks to blockchain and a payment platform, you can do, or Polygon or whatever, you can send the money for a few cents, 0.0004, and these guys who maybe, honestly, they are working in Europe or in the US, washing cars or doing very humble jobs, they will be able to send all these remittances to their families. Another example, supply chain is, for example, coffee. No? When Uganda is the biggest producer of the world for coffee, and I didn't know, but the coffee, you should collect the grains one by one, by hand. No? Then, and normally, it's a woman with a child on her back, and they are earning like $1 per day. Then, if ensuring the traceability through blockchain again, you can ensure that per each capsule, this woman receives 5 cents, which in the total price is nothing or could be very residual. You can imagine the impact that this can create on this initial person. No? Then all these things obviously are very complicated to implement. I'm also honest about that. Regulators are involved. A lot of these middlemen, they don't want to lose the power because a lot of people is extracting value from this chain. But for me are very 2 clear examples about how a disruptive, decentralized technology can bring value to the world.
Absolutely. I come from the Middle East, where 570 million people, only 15% of people have bank accounts, but almost 100% of people have a smart device that can benefit from the projects that you're building. Sandeep, your closing thoughts on decentralization and the importance, and forgetting our differences on the chains, your closing thoughts. What should we all take away from this, and what steps can we take to sort of, get us closer to decentralization rather than centralization?
Yes. So first of all, I feel that, it's very important for us to understand that the revolution that Bitcoin started, it's not a technological revolution. It's basically a revolution or evolution of humankind. Like I say, like when we say Web 3.0, I say Web 3.0 is humanity 3.0. It's basically we are moving from one kind of systems that we are used to, where there is always a third party in the middle, whether it's a government or a bank or any application we use, to this trustless systems where we go back to peer again, right? And that's why, like, this is a evolution, and it is inevitable also. Like, no matter what happens, who tries to stop it, once the people have tasted the blood on this, like, it is not going back. Like, we are moving in this direction. It can be faster or slower, whether it will take 10 years or it will take 40 years, that can be argued, but it is going to happen. So, the Web3 and crypto is coming for you. And as a Web3 community, I want to say that, we spend a lot of time, although it makes the crypto Twitter fun, all these infighting and all that. But if we see as a whole group, we are not the enemies to each other. The enemy is this existing world which is resisting to move into this direction, which is natural evolution of humankind, and we should try as much. Of course, we need the fun on Twitter also. So, there will be these fightings. But as far as we all understand, as you are saying, that, we need these use cases, there is no argument against like having these use cases and more empowerment to the individuals. And at the end of the day, we are one single community which is fighting for that, that evolution, that revolution. Everything should be fine. And in terms of the steps, I think what Bitcoin and even like proof of work or proof of stake, what they have enabled is these free markets. Like, and although these systems at the protocol level move slow, but they have a way of finding their own equilibriums, where if the system is not decentralized enough, people will realize and start losing trust, and then community will do things which will bring more decentralizations. I think it has happened before, like when the Bitcoin was like the large block debate was happening with BCH and all that. Like, Bitcoin community came together, the users came together with that USAF and things like that, and we took a stance, and here we are. Similarly, with the Ethereum, like this new post-merge scenario, there are things like, these OFAC compliance and resistance and all that, but the community is already thinking about the solutions which can bring us back to the thing. So I feel that these free markets have a way to find their equilibrium. With these big changes comes these transitory periods, but eventually we will find the equilibrium, whether it's on the Bitcoin side or on the Ethereum side.
Amit, under 50 seconds, your final thoughts on decentralization and how can we leverage AI to take us further there?
So I'll say two quick things. One is, to your point, Sandeep, where there's a socio-cultural kind of zeitgeist movement towards what I call the commons revolution or the people's revolution, right? Look around us. It's not just in these halls. It's people movements. So we're moving in the right direction, and the centralized world is noticing. We coordinate a lot of centralized capital in Silicon Valley blockchain society, and we do see this movement. The second piece I would say is that there is a change happening to what startups and investors are focused on. The Silicon Valley syndrome. I've been a Silicon Valley guy for 22 years. Build the coolest shit doesn't apply anymore. You have to solve big problems. And I think that shift is coming. You look at the Web3 companies, they are working towards solving big problems.
And now there's also Web5 companies, which you can all meet here, right? Thank you very much for my wonderful panelists. Please give them round of applause.
Thanks, everyone.
Follow them on Twitter so you can give them hard time for their views and opinions, because this is what we all do. Thank you very much.
Thanks.